It is just a huge, huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Matthew Free and Dr. Collin Larson. Matthew is from Presque Isle, Michigan.
Yep.
And you're from Louisville, Kentucky?
Yep.
Louisville, Kentucky, and they bought Louisville Sluggers as gifts. And I think this is, his last name is Free, because he probably clubs anybody who tries to arrest him. Thank you for the gifts, gentlemen. Yeah. So let's go through. So Dr. Matthew Free is a 2016 graduate, University of Louisville. Matt is currently on the tail end of completing a 2-year scholarship with the NHSC, National Health Services Corps, in a rural clinic in Michigan. Since graduation, Matt has been engaged in CE, currently working towards his fellowship in the AGD. Congratulations. He's a member of the AGD, the AACD, the ADA, and the Michigan Dental Association. Matt hopes to purchase a practice within the year and transition out of public health into ownership. He is married to his wife, Caitlin, and they have a 7-month-old little boy named Graham and a 2-year-old golden retriever named Juno. Matt's hobbies include traveling, learning, cooking, paddleboarding, and hanging out with the fam. And Dr. Collin Larson is a 2016 graduate at University of Louisville School of Dentistry. Also, you guys were classmates, right?
Yep.
And his first year out of school, he and his brother worked together for a DSO in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is where Upjohn was, right? Upjohn Pharmaceuticals?
I think, yes.
Yeah, that was the home of John, but I think they got swallowed up by someone else. He now works as an associate for a private practice in Prospect, Kentucky. Collin has focused on CE early on in his career, earning just shy of 100 hours his first year out of school in the areas of endodontics, dental implants, orthodontics, periodontal surgery, and practice management. He is a member of the ADA and AGD. He lives in Louisville with his girlfriend, Mary, who is also a dentist. His hobbies include traveling, reading, video games, and amateur beer brewing. You brought me baseball bats instead of a beer?
I know.
Do you not know I'm Irish?
I didn't think it'd make the flight.
You know, I went from 7th grade to the endodontal school with John Lease, who's now an endodontist out in Southern Cal, and his dad made his own beer.
Oh, cool.
And raced pigeons.
Oh.
And we were young, and at that age, you know, in the 7th, 8th grade, you don't really care about beer, but the racing pigeon thing was so cool because he took that more serious. He was a pharmacist.
Okay.
And he took racing pigeons more serious than anything in his, I mean, he was just really focused. And so in his pigeon shed, there's no straw or hay because you wouldn't want stuff in their eyes.
Okay.
And then you put these measurement things, and these guys would take these pigeons, you know, several hundred miles away, and they'd all let them out, and who came back, and then you'd clock them in. It was real scientific who won the race.
Huh.
But their droppings, I mean, you walk in there, and the droppings, the ammonia would burn your eyes. So me and John, when we were planting our tomatoes and pumpkins mostly, so we'd plant a pumpkin or a tomato plant, but we'd dig a hole like the size of a pickle bucket and fill the bottom half with pure pigeon shit. And then put dirt and put our little plant there. And people would walk by our tomato plants and they go, what the hell did you, it looks like a tree. And the pumpkins, I mean, I was little, in the 7th grade, I was growing pumpkins. I could only roll over. I couldn't even lift them up. And people would say, what is the secret? And I'd say, pigeon shit. And, but I did watch him brew a lot of beer. And that's why, hobby. And that's the story behind the story. You know, that's why they ended Prohibition.
They were brewing their own?
Well, the 18th Amendment was to ban alcohol, and the 21st was to let it back in. But you know why the 21st, you know why the 21st was passed? Everybody was making their own.
Yeah.
And the amount of blindness and disease and death and sickness, and they just sit there and said, you know, I'd rather them buy something made by a master brewer than make this shit in their bathtub, because it's really turned into a public health disaster. But I'm so glad to get you on the show, because we, you know, we've done 1,000 shows, so we've done, you know, a bunch on endo, perio, pedo, pros, prax, all the deals. But I like to get these kids, it's about 5% of our viewers are pre-dent. Yeah. 25% are in dental school. Okay. And then the remaining almost 99.99% are under 30. In fact, shoot me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, and tell me who you are, where you're from, what country you're from. And so I'm sure everyone in dental school it would much rather listen to someone, you know, a couple years out of the gate than a bunch of old farts that have, you know, graduated 30 years ago in a different time and place. So what advice If you were a junior or senior in dental school,
Yeah.
they're probably wondering, gosh, I mean, they're so focused on graduating from school, but in the back of their head, they got an upset stomach thinking, what happens when I walk through the door? I mean, I want to graduate, and I want to throw off my cap, but what happens when that cap hits the floor?
Right.
What advice would you give them? What have you learned along the way?
You know, I'd say, one, get really serious about CE, as serious as you can be. AGD has really helped me just stay focused on CE. And then I would say figure out what your personality, what you are wanting to do, and really having kind of almost a sit down with yourself and saying, okay, do I want to go and own a practice right out the gate, or do I want to do an associate? And really trying to get a hold of what you want out of dentistry, I think is a big thing. And then after that, once you kind of have an idea of what you really want to do, start emailing people, start making contacts, start pushing. If you don't find the right place, go look for another place. Don't be scared to keep looking and finding. And I think that really helps as far as finding a good place right out of school.
So now, did you have any student loan debt?
I did, yeah. I was out of stater at Louisville, and I applied for the NHSC scholarship. My third year, or I had 3 years left, so my first year I applied for it. I didn't get it, and I applied my second year, exact same application. Everything was basically the same, and I got it. So it took my out-of-state of tuition to an in-stater, essentially. So I think I have $240 somewhere around there as far as tuition. Yeah. And
you, in 2016, this 2018, so you've been out a year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And paid a couple loans off, put a few of those in deferment to save up money for practice. So they're not making any jumps with the loans, but getting ready to buy a practice.
Now, when you were in dental school, were you ever presented a lecture from a DSO telling you that, you know, you're never going to, private practice is dead, corporate's taking over, it's like join us or be killed by us? Did you ever get lectures like that?
Yeah.
I think we had one or two. The school was pretty, they kind of had that locked down. Like, it was very selective on who could come in and even give lectures. I mean, for the most part, we had to go find out, like, financial advisors and stuff like that. A lot of them weren't allowed to come into the school, so we had to kind of have off-campus meetings like that students had organized, stuff like that. But I think there were one or two DSOs that came in, and they were basically saying this is the way of the future, you know. And
well, do you think that's true?
I don't think so. I mean, I've worked for both. I worked for a DSO last year. And I think
a small regional one or a big national one?
I guess it depends on your definition of big or small. I think the organization I worked for had about 182 offices at the time, and I think their plan was to expand about 10% a year, something like that. But as far as the company was concerned, I was treated really, really well. The benefits were good, and I had good pay right out of school. They paid for a lot of CE, decent mentorship. I just didn't like the area I was in. I wanted to get back down to Louisville, so found a good associateship opportunity where the doctor is doing things that I think that I want to do at some point. So I kind of hopped on board for the mentorship and in hopes to kind of pick up some of the skills that she has.
Now you're completing a 2-year with public health. Would you call it public health?
Yeah, for sure.
You're to public health, which you call the National
Health Service Corps.
And National Health Service Corps is also public health?
Yeah.
So there's public health and then Indian public health?
So the NHSC, nonprofit, government, public health, I think that branches out into Indian Health Services as well. I'm not sure. That's kind of the broad start, I guess, for the nationals, the NHSC, and then from there it goes into different areas. I'm technically right now in a nonprofit.
And are you glad you made that decision?
From a financial standpoint, yeah. From a clinical standpoint, I'd like to be in private practice, to be perfectly honest with you. There's definitely a ceiling with what you get to do in a nonprofit. So you quickly max out on doing the type of procedures you can do. You're not going to be doing implants, you're not going to do ortho, you're not going to do a lot of the interesting things out there. And so if that's something that's appealing to you like it is for me, I want to be in private practice as soon as I can because those things I want to do.
So when you were in public, we'll just call it public health. When you were in public health, were there a lot of career dentists in there that were employees that have been there 10, 20, 30 years and loved it? Or is it more a rotating door of young graduates?
A little bit of both. In our organization, I would say for public health, they do a good job taking care of their doctors. And so there are a few career doctors in there. But for the most part, yeah, it's a revolving door.
What percent would you say are career doctors versus what percent revolving door?
I mean, like I said, they do a good job, and it's kind of a remote area where we're at, so I'd say maybe 50-50 almost.
Okay, 50-50.
So not what you would typically expect in public health.
But it showed, okay, and what about when you were with the DSO that had 100 offices?
So I had maybe about 4 good friends that I had made my first year there, and I think 3 of them left after the first year.
Yeah.
So kind of a 75% turnover rate.
Because a lot of kids are in dental school thinking, I don't know if I am owning my own business kind of scares me. I think I'd be much happier in a DSO and I could just do dentistry and not do the business. And I say, you know, we all live once and no one gets off this rock alive. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And we're all going to end up in the same size home in a coffin, you know. Yeah. But if it's really that panacea, then show me the data, because all I see with associates in private practice and DSOs are the most visible, so they're the ones that always, you know, climbed up the pole the highest. That's what everybody's pointing at.
Right.
But private practice associates is the lion's share in DSOs, and I just see the employees after a year or two, they all want their own place.
I think it has to do with the allure of that kind of immediate income. I mean, they're offering a pretty substantial amount.
What is that amount?
More than I made 160 my first year out.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was all.
Ryan, what percent, if you make $160,000 a year in America, what percent of income are you in? I mean, is that the top 5%? 160 to 165 puts you in the top 6%. So you were, you came out of school in your 20s, late 20s?
Yeah, I graduated, I was 28.
So when you were 28, becoming a dentist put you in the top 6.5% income in the world's richest country.
Yeah, my last job I made like $7.25 an hour.
Yeah, and a lot of these dentists sit there, they're always crying the blues about how bad it is and how tough it is, and I'm like getting out my violin, like, okay, you're 28, in the top 6.5% income. I mean, it's still a hell of a good gig. I mean, so, and what was your student loan debt?
I'm at 470.
Okay, so if you would have lived in a van down by the river, you could have paid off half your student loans in the first year. Well, a third.
Well, after taxes.
Why didn't you do that?
Why didn't I do that? I don't know.
because Chris Farley is living in his van, and he's like, Chris, you should have taken a Louisville Slugger and kicked him out. So what advice would you give juniors and seniors in dental school?
Yeah.
Did you do a residency, or did you,
Nope.
when you come out of school, you just went straight to employment?
Yeah, I went straight into employment. I kind of had, I was fortunate to have a couple good mentors. You know, one of my dad's best friend was a dentist, and his partner I got to be really close with as well. And they kind of guided me and pushed me in a direction like, hey, you need to focus on this. When you're ready to flip the switch, here's some CE you need to go do. So I kind of had a good direction that I was pointed in. And I felt pretty comfortable with my clinical skill set that I got while I was in school. And I just figured I'd learn on the fly and go practice a little bit, get some firsthand experience.
And you dental students, listen, they keep mentioning CE, continue ed. You took 100 hours the first year. And did you know when you're in dental school, those 450 online CE courses on Dental Town, they're all free for you. And I'm sure you have the greatest instructors in the world, but we get some pretty flippin' amazing instructors on Dental Town. I mean, there's some, there's a 19-hour endo course that cost $1 million and 5 years to make, and every endodontist that I know that has watched it said, son of a bitch, you guys summarized all of endo in 19 hours, and it's free. I mean, and I know your endo instructor's good, but I mean, gosh darn, I mean, if you ever looked at a lesson where somebody took, an endodontist of 30 years, took 5 years and $1 million to just try to transfer everything he knew into your brain in 19 hours on a very complex subject. So you're both looking to buy a practice.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm still working as an associate for now. I hope to own in the next couple of years. I'm just trying to learn some of the skills that I want.
And you married a dentist, right?
I'm not married yet.
But your girlfriend's a dentist.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
She works in a town just over the river in southern Indiana.
Was she a classmate in 2016 too?
No, she was in the year below us. Yeah.
So she was 2017?
Yep.
And how common was hooking up with a partner in dental school in your graduating class?
Not very common.
Yeah, I think
maybe two.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
One of our classmates married another classmate. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So only 2 or 3, and how big was your graduating class?
Oh, was it 120? Is that what the size was?
A little less.
So only 3 out of 120?
Yeah.
And what percent of the class had a dentist in the family?
Probably a good percentage, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a third or a
Yeah,
quarter.
somewhere around there.
And that's what you see all around the world in every occupation. I don't care. Like I grew up in Kansas. Nobody just graduated from high school and borrows money to buy a wheat farm. You inherit your grandma's wheat farm, and so farming, dairy, soybean, corn. You go to Africa, all those farms and ranches, and so 25 to 30% of everyone is in a family business. I mean, you just have such an advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, if you grew up milking cows your whole life, by the time you get out of college, you probably know a little bit about dairy.
Sure.
As opposed to just someone who walked out with a agricultural degree from K-State and then decides to go buy, $500,000 of debt buying a dairy operation, so on. So when you buy practice, what are you looking for?
Looking for a good track record and looking for a great place for, like I said in the bio, I have a 6-month-old son or 7-month-old son now. Just looking for a great place for family. We like the rural setting, so we're going with that philosophy of go rural. Okay,
so you like rural. Were you born rural?
Yeah, I grew up in a town of 20,000. Some people may call it rural, some people may not. I currently practice in a town of 10,000. We live in a township of 1,600 people. So going from Louisville to that was a fun adjustment after school. I was just telling Collin here, Amazon Prime 2-day shipping is like a week shipping now. So there's pros and cons to going rural. It's really quiet. It's slow paced. People are really friendly. Everybody knows you, even if you don't know them.
So when you're buying a case of beer at 2 a.m. in your underwear, there's a kind of like, oh my God, that's my dentist.
See you in the morning at 8.
Yeah. So is it a competitive advantage of going to a small town as opposed to staying in Louisville?
I think so, just because a lot of doctors don't want to go up there. Where I'm at, it's just, for example, where we live now, it's 30 minutes to the grocery store, to a mall is 4 hours. So it's rural, and some people that's going to be great for them, some people it's not. And so I think that weeds out a certain amount of people that are looking for practices and makes it easier to find practices, because practices are on the market a little bit longer than maybe in a hot spot in a suburb where, practice is on the market for a week or two and they've got a few bids already.
I can give you 10 names from the last year where, a dentist turned 65, he's already retired. Maybe he had a health problem, a stroke or something, heart attack, and he's got it for sell, and after a couple of years, no buyers, he just walks away, they just close it down. And then you put a practice up for sale in Scottsdale, and you got 4 bids on it the day it's listed. So it's liquidity. Yeah. So a dental office in a rural area can be an illiquid asset.
Right.
But in those small towns, they don't even have to advertise, do they? I mean,
no. I mean, you do see, when you're looking through their P&Ls, at some offices I've looked at, you do see a marketing budget, and sometimes it's a pretty normal, healthy percentage in there. And
like what?
Not. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. One of the ones I was looking at was $1 million office with like $30,000 a year marketing, but that included a boat slip. So, there's you go to small towns, I might include a duck blind or a hunting land or something like that they use for PR, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So why would you want to buy existing instead of just start a scratch practice?
My brother-in-law started from scratch, and
so your wife's brother is a dentist.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
was he a classmate too?
No, he's been out probably about a decade. And she was there to help him. Actually, she worked front office and kind of got him off the ground, and she was there to help. And it's been good to him, but it just seemed like a scarier path, at least for my personality. a lot more investment as far as time into the office initially. And so those are things that made me a little bit nervous about starting scratch rather than going into someone that already has a cash flow that's existing, and then I can already have a patient base and systems in place that I can build on. Something that's interesting for me.
It is absolutely less risky. I mean, so like in the 2008 crash, just in my backyard of Phoenix, like I think 85, you hear it a bit different, but about 85 practices went under. And they were two, you could divide them in half. Half of them were scratch practices that just started, who thought they were going to open up and do a direct mail and get all these new patients, and marketing went to zero. I mean, they could market till they blew in the face, they couldn't get any foot traffic. And the other half, all these cosmetic dentists, who for the 94 to 2000 bull market run and the next run after that, all they knew how to do is take out all your amalgams and PFMs and replace it all with Empress glass. And they completely lost their ability to do molar endo, extractions, wisdom teeth. They didn't like any blood. They just liked the white and fluffy stuff, cosmetic dentistry, bleaching, bonding, Invisalign. And in a turn down, when you think you're going to lose your job, the payment you walk away from last is your car payment. And the next payment is your phone payment. But you'll walk away from your house, you know, and you sure as hell ain't gonna go get a tummy tuck and a boob job and 10 veneers on your upper teeth. Yeah. I mean, so that market just dies. So when you talk about, and what's funny is some of these cosmetic dentists on Dental Town, they're all talking about diversifying their 401k. Mm-hmm. And it's like, of all people to talk about diversification, you're a guy that can't do a root canal, can't do Invisalign, can't, you can only do this one little narrow thing. And when I think about diversification, it's like, I'd rather have a diversified ability to do dentistry than relying on my 401k, because I've seen those stocks go up and down.
Yeah.
And and I don't care how much money you have forever. I mean, you guys ever think about this? For every $1 million, what is, Ryan, what's the government paying right now on a 30-year bond? What is it? 2.8%?
2.8.
Yeah. What did I say?
Yeah.
What did I say? So if you take $1 million times 0.028, that is $28,000 a year income on a bond. The guy who motivated me to be a dentist, my next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson, he just celebrated his 50th year, and even though he has cut back to like Monday through Thursday from 6 to noon. That income there, I mean, let's say that you made just $100,000 from a year from 65 to 75. $100,000 divided by 0.028, that's equivalent to having $3.5 million in your retirement. So bond yields are disastrous because all through human history, you want to hold the same hand as the government. So if the government is stockpiling gold because that's where they think the future is in gold, then you want to buy gold. But when the government is $20 trillion in debt, yeah, do you think they want to pay it back with gold bars or counterfeiting currency and keeping interest rates near zero? Mm-hmm. Because if interest rates were historical, like 5%, like right now, if interest rates were historical, 5% forever, my God, the government interest payment would be 40% higher.
Yeah.
From 2.85. So not burning out. It's like when dentists tell me, I want to buy a laser, but I don't know return on investment. Dude, if that laser keeps you from burning out, if you buy a laser or a CAD cam, I don't care what you do, if you buy that and it makes you run every stop sign on the way to work, it's priceless.
That's great.
Because you know what's the most expensive thing in the world? To sit there and say, I hate dentistry, I hate driving to work, I want to get out of here. And I'm always like, fix that. Because that's worth an extra $3.5 million in bonds for every $100,000 a year you want to retire on. So why are you burned out? Is it biological? Do you need a psychiatrist? Is it psychological? Do you need a therapist? Are you not exercising? And like I had one dentist tell me, I'd rather be taken in the backyard and beat with a belt than do a root canal. Then stop doing root canals.
Right.
Just stop. They're called endodontics. There's 4,000 of them.
Yeah, you don't have to
because I don't want you to get burned out. It's so expensive to walk away from a career. It's like right now they're talking about this, our greatest player on the Arizona Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald. And, you know, just and he was wishy-washy because he should have retired every year.
Yeah.
But he always decides to do one more year, and you just look at that one last year payment, and it's like, Larry, you couldn't have had enough savings in the world to be invested to make that much money next year. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just priceless. But the neat thing about those guys is he says, you know, it's obviously not the money when he grew up with no money and has crazy money. But he just still loves the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, he just smiles like, it's just tough to walk away. So what about you? Are you going to start at scratch? Are you going to buy?
I don't know. I think buying an existing practice is probably the best bet. I'm not really sure. That's one of the big things that Matt and I were just talking about is why I'm kind of holding off too, is I'm not sure where I want to go yet. You know, you hear a lot about these rural areas in like Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, where, you know, you can go out and you can, you know, buy an existing practice or even set up shop out there, start something brand new. And, you know, there are people on that group that we were looking at that were paid off, you know, $300,000 in debt their first year out of school, opening a brand new practice.
They opened up a brand new practice and paid off $300,000 student loans the first year.
Wasn't that, or did he take over?
There was some wild.
Yeah, some people were taking over a practice. I think one guy took over a practice that was collecting, I think, $360,000, and then bumped it up to, was it like 1.2 million or something?
Yeah,
just
something
in like a year.
And how did he or she do that?
That was with that particular case was sedation and IV sedation and implants. You know,
Yeah, bringing IV
They had done
So-
CE again.
So the
CE.
dentist wasn't doing IV sedation.
No,
is
it's
it?
bringing in
Yeah.
like a whole new skill set.
Yeah, so that's the pattern we've seen for 30 years. So you look at the numbers, and old man Slugger is doing $750,000 a year, and you think it's a good practice. You buy it, then you go in there. You don't realize $100,000 out a year was molar endo, and you're referring it all to an endodontist. And another $100,000 was wisdom teeth, and you're referring all that to an oral surgeon. And you realize that you just bought a $750,000 office, but you could have only done $500,000 of that production. And the reverse of that, which is the gold mine, is when you go into a dental office and this guy has referred out $100,000 a year of endo and $100,000 a year of Invisalign, $100,000 a year of wisdom teeth, and he doesn't do IV sedation, and you sit there and say, okay, you're doing $350 and I can do all of that.
Right.
But I'm going to buy this restaurant, and all you sell is hamburgers, and I'm going to add pizza, and you just sell French fries, and I'm adding tater tots and onion rings, and it's a gold mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can definitely see the allure of something like that, but still.
Now, would your girlfriend's a dentist? Would you guys buy a practice and work together?
We've talked about that, and everybody that I've talked to says it's probably a really bad idea. Just to spend that amount of time with a significant other, like you're there all day long, and then you go home and you're all together all day long or all night long. It's just a little much. So I don't know. We'll see what the future holds, but I think we've both kind of decided probably not.
Well, you know, decision making, when I got my MBA at ASU, they had an entire course. It was 2 courses a trimester, so 6 courses a year, 2 years, 12 courses, and one of them was decision making. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be one of the most interesting classes in the world because it's all psychology. And one of the biggest takeaways that, you know, if you're not sure, just give it more time. The poorest decisions are made when you're not sure, but you make a decision.
Yeah.
And if you give any decision enough time, someday it becomes, you know, you're not sure left or right. Someday it becomes so clear that it's non-debatable. But if you're sitting there wondering, should I or shouldn't I? Well, if you're wondering, then you need some more time. Why does any decision have to be made today? Now, you're looking for a practice with a broker or non-broker? How?
Without a broker, and that started from Dentaltown. Getting on there and reading a lot about what people had to say as far as going with a broker, without a broker. You know, Jason Wood, Tim Lott, both of those are big Dentaltown posters on there, and they reading their stuff really helped a lot. In fact, I'm using both of them as I'm going through the practice process.
Are those two? Tim Lott's an accountant.
Yeah.
But he's a specialist. He's a dental accountant. He only does dentists. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see in dentistry is, you know, they have an accountant and he's got 50 clients and only 1 or 2 are dentists.
Yeah.
And all the advice they get would be like me advising a Chinese restaurant and a dairy farm and a goat farm in Ghana. And it's like, if you had cancer, would you just find a doctor who did everything, or would you find a guy? I mean, if I had a problem with an organ, if I had a kidney problem, I want to go to a guy that only does kidneys.
Yeah. Right.
I don't want to go to my local MD. And Jason Wood is an attorney who's second generation.
Yeah, I'm actually working with his dad.
Yeah.
But working with their law firm. So
that's all they've done is dentists for 2 generations. So are they pro-broker or against broker?
They recommend going against if you can do it. And
they recommend going against brokers.
Yeah, so if you can send out letters to the area you're interested in, I've done that. I didn't have a whole lot of success with that, but that was one thing I did. You can look on broker sites. You can look at the offices the brokers have listed, but you don't have to work with them. You sign a non-disclosure, but you don't have to sign up for them to represent you. And at one point I thought about working with a broker, but for me it was just way too pricey. I was seeing, they wanted 5% of the sale, and so if you look at buying $1 million office, 5% of that gets up there pretty quick. When you can
what is it?
Gosh,
what is 5% of
5%? You put me on the spot here.
My gosh, 3 doctors. 3 doctors have to go to 1 million.
Is that 50,000?
Times 0.05 is $50,000. By the way, I showed Ryan some today on the iPhone. He thought it was pretty cool. You guys have iPhones?
I don't.
Yeah.
Do you know on the clock on the iPhone app actually is a clock that shows the time?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's the only app. It's the only app that's moving. So you're trying to save $50,000?
Yeah, and I feel like that's, if you think about, I could spend $50,000, or I could just put a little more time in after work and do the legwork and contact offices, cold call offices, figure out where you want to be and just start pounding away at it. I think that's at least something in my life that's worked really well, is just pounding away at whatever you're trying to do. So if it's getting into dental school, if it's getting out of dental school and getting your skills up, or if it's looking for an office, just keep pounding at it until you finally figure out what you want and where you're at.
Now, on the Dentaltown app, do you guys have that on your phone?
I do.
Yep.
They have it on your phone? The classifieds is one of the most overlooked things on Dentaltown. There's like 6,000. It's free, by the way, on the classifieds. Did you look at any of the practices there?
Yeah, definitely.
Were there a lot of practices listed there?
A ton.
Yeah,
a ton. A really good resource, because you kind of see bits and pieces with other broker sites, but yeah, on Dentaltown, it kind of seems that most of brokers are putting on their site and on Dentaltown. So you kind of get an aggregate of different brokers putting them all together, and so you can search by state. And I've done that because at one point we were looking at a couple other states besides Michigan. Yeah,
a lot of brokers, like say you're in Arizona, so you've got your listings in all Arizona on your Arizona site, and you advertise in local Arizona Dental State Journal or whatever. But there might be some guy in the Navy in Okinawa who wants to come back to Arizona. So these international sites are so much better. And plus they're free. Why wouldn't, if you're trying to sell $1 million practice, why wouldn't you list it free? By the way, thank you, Dentaltown. We just had our 5 millionth post.
That's awesome.
Wow.
We're 20 years old now. We launched in '98 and Facebook launched in 2004. We were 6 years before Facebook. 5 million posts. Did those 5 million posts help you in dental school?
Oh, so much, yeah, especially with the business side and looking at offices and reading and getting an idea of what was going on outside of dental school. I found that dental school was almost like this enclosed space where you really didn't know what was going on outside, besides the few stories you would hear from dentists or from other dental students that talk to dentists. And so Dentaltown kind of gave you a pulse on what was going on outside and what to be looking for on the business side, for sure.
Yeah. And how about you?
Yeah, that was actually one of the first like dental resources that I've ever even thought of or heard about was Dental Town. Went on and I had to like fake an ID or something to get in because it asked for your license number. So I just typed something. I think I got through. I don't know.
Well, there should be a category be dental student.
I don't even think I looked at that. I just signed in somehow. But yeah, I was looking around at forums before I even got into dental school.
Yeah.
So when I was kind of toying around with the idea, and then looked through some of the message boards while I was going, and now I've been doing a lot of the CE, and I did your 30-day dental MBA course. And there's
by the way, that's another iTunes show. So you're on. If you listen to me on iTunes, it's Dentistry Uncensored. But we also have Dr. Farran's 30-day dental MBA. And what's really the most craziest thing about that, and it makes me realize the same will happen to the show, is nothing really changes in geometry, algebra, and trig. Mm-hmm. And I did the 30-day MBA in 1990, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And on just iTunes, it's still downloaded like 3,500 times a month. And I get all these emails, and they're from Cambodia and Kathmandu, and I said, well, was it pertinent? Some people don't even know it was 20 years old. And all the people that it was 20 years old, they go, well, I mean, what changes in business? I mean, what changes in accounting? And, you know what?
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff held true, so I think it holds up pretty well. I think you need to bring back the opening song to maybe one of your new episodes.
What was the opening song?
So some guitar riff, I think.
I'll send it to you. It's hilarious.
Really? There's an opening song?
Well, it's like it's an intro with like video and all this stuff, but it's funny when you just listen to it audio. People are like, "What is up with this super long intro?"
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're watching this on iTunes, you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. We're youtube.com/Dental Town Magazine. So, how far out are you? Do you think from purchasing and practice?
Yeah. So I finished my obligation with the NHSC this summer, and looking to purchase right after that, essentially. So July, August, so maybe 4 or 5 months out is where we're at. So
being 2 years out of school, they're going to come out of school and they're going to, like, when you were in school, did you do an Invisalign case?
No.
Did you place an implant?
No.
Did you, so a lot of times if a kid's walking out and they're $250,000 in debt, I mean, all these institutes are expensive. Pankey and Spear and Coyce and Ross Nash and then buying a CAD cam, that's $145,000. If I wanted to get into Lanap, that's anywhere from $87,000 to $125,000 depending on what package you bought. So they're sitting there. What do you think? What would you recommend they learn? And they can't learn it all overnight. I mean, you can't go mad. And then there's sleep apnea, which the media is obsessed with. I mean, sleep apnea is gonna. I mean, not sleeping well will cure male pattern baldness, erectile dysfunction. I mean, the things I read in sleep media, it's like, dude, But anyway, there's so many things they didn't learn in dental school, and that's not the dental school's fault. I mean, they took you from a kid to license to give my granddaughter a shot and drill on her tooth. I mean, so you're basically they said, okay, you're not going to kill my granddaughter. Yeah, you're out now. Yeah. But what CE journey would you recommend?
I would definitely recommend going out and finding a good endo course. I think that's something easy that a lot of doctors just don't like doing right now. So if you're, build up some confidence, go out and, take a course. It doesn't matter which one, just something that teaches you a little bit more, specifically molar. I don't know how many students get access to molars. We didn't get too much.
No, I didn't do it.
I think you were.
So what percent of your class graduated not liking molar endo?
I'd probably say a significant portion.
Yeah,
but
just because most of us didn't get to do it.
Yeah, most didn't get. I got to do one.
One molar?
I didn't do one.
So you graduated $250,000 in debt. How much were you in debt?
$240,000.
So both $250,000 in debt.
Oh, $500,000.
And you didn't do a molar.
No.
And you did one.
I did one. Yeah.
I mean, Brad Gettleman, who's the most amazing endodontist I've ever known. He co-wrote one of the chapters of Pathways to the Pulp with Stephen Cohen. And we went to UMKC together, class of '87. And we had 6 full-time endodontic faculty, and I think I did 15 molars.
Yeah. Wow.
And then you look at these private dental schools in our backyard, and they have like 1 instructor in endo full-time for an entire private school. These kids are coming out $500,000 in debt. They had 1 instructor, and you did 0 and you did 1. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. I'll go to like a TMD course and an occlusion course. It's like, everybody wants to learn more about occlusion. I'll say, well, what percent of your practice is TMD and occlusion? I go, I don't know, less than 1%. Okay, so why are you here?
Yeah.
Because you don't do molar endo. Or you're referring, and because molar endo, if I come in with a toothache, from a public health perspective, I need my dentist in the cities to be able to treat that patient.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, well, I could bleach your teeth, I could do veneers, I could adjust your occlusion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think extractions and root canals.
That was one thing I was going to say. I knew I was going into public health, so I knew I needed to be comfortable with taking out teeth. And so I looked at it that way. So in school, whenever we had an oral surgery residency, not residency, but oral surgery rotation, I was all about that and trying to get as much experience as I could.
Yeah.
And then that helped. And then I've looked at my time in public health doing extractions, surgical extractions, getting comfortable with thirds as preparation for implants. So if you can section a molar, how much better are you at getting ready to take out to put an implant in? So that's what I've tried to. I would say probably, like you're saying, extractions.
Yeah.
One big thing that has really helped me is the AGD. It's pushed me to get more C than I would have otherwise. It's been a great motivator to say, okay, I want to do the fellowship, and that's 500 hours of CE. You can get it as early as 3 years.
What made you want to get your fellowship?
We had people come talk to us in school, a couple lunch and learns, and they talked about how they had some type of studies where if you had your fellowship, you made this much more money. If you had your MAGD, you made this much more money. And they talked about you can do more procedures, and you get out of school, and at least for me, and you realize, wow, there's so many things I don't know, and I just don't feel comfortable not knowing as little, or knowing as little as I did out of school. So it really prompted me to just get serious about pushing myself with CE, and so the AGD was a great motivator for that.
So there's 9 specialties recognized by the ADA and 0 specialties recognized by the court system. So you remember that big lawsuit in Texas. So specialties is only something that our country club of dentists does and the American Dental Association. It's not a legal thing at all. And but of the 9 specialties recognized in our church of the American Dental Association, the public health one is the one that gets the least attention. People want to talk about endodontists and periodontists and oral surgeons. And from a public health point of view, shame on you, dentistry, that 8% of all emergency room visits are odontogenic in origin. And then you tell me, I don't like molar endo, and I don't like pulling teeth, and I just want to do Invisalign and veneers. Well, you know what? You're a doctor. I mean, could you imagine going to the emergency room with a broken leg, and they go, we don't do legs. We only do hands, and it's like, damn it, you're a doctor. And especially rural. I mean, everybody thinks of the specialties where half of America lives in 147 metros. Well, what about the other half of America who lives in 19,008 towns, and they're 4 hours away from a mall, and they show up to your office with an abscess, and you've just decided that public health dentistry doesn't exist, and you're a cosmetic dentist, and you want to be a gnathologist. No, you're a damn doctor. You're a doctor, and public health specialty is, I think, the most important because people die when they don't have abscess. Ludwig's angina. I've had a patient die. In my 30 years, I had a patient that came in waffling about an extraction, didn't know what to do, told me they'd get back to me. And it was like, I think it took like 2 days, and my assistant was crying because she called him to figure out what's going on. Oh, he died. And he's talking to his wife, woke up all swollen, took to the emergency room, IV antibiotics, died. Oh. And I mean, people die from dental infections.
Yeah.
And and furthermore, you have to sell someone veneers and bleaching and bonding. I mean, you got to sell someone that, and you got to have. Ryan, will you go get me that that little box on my desk? That oh, what's it called? To help case presentation dentistry. So you know, when you're trying to sell grandma who's had dentures forever. And by the way, I accept no advertising money. Nobody paid me for this.
Is that Stephen Buchanan make that?
What's that?
Dr. Buchanan? Does he make those? I know he makes True Tooth.
Yeah, well, it's Santa Barbara, California.
Oh yeah, that's him.
I did not even put that together.
Huh.
But I do. Everybody is talking about it and they're loving this. But you have to sell an implant case. You gotta have great communication, case presentation sales. You don't have to with extractions and endo. They're coming in begging you, can you pull this tooth? Can you get me out of pain? It's $1,000. You don't want them to end up in the emergency room, because the emergency room, their fee that'll ding them if they're cash or insurance is going to be about $1,500, and they're not any further. They just got an X-ray and some PenVK and some Vicodin.
Right.
So you've blown $1,500 and you're still at square one. And so that is, my gosh, if you learned anything in my 1,000 episodes, learn extractions and learn molar endo. And number two, you're exactly correct. It's harder to remove a molar than it is to replace it with an implant. So if you get extractions down, well, then implants will be easier, because it's a lot easier to place an implant than it is to remove a tooth. I'd say at least a third easier.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So okay. So you've learned. So we talked about endo and extractions. How does someone learn extractions?
I think for me it was just trying to get into, like Matt was saying, like the oral surgery rotation at school. We had a lot of really good instructors there, and a lot of hands-on if you wanted it. So some people, you know, some of the students weren't really keen on doing it, so you could jump in and take whatever cases were being offered. So I think as a student, get in there, get comfortable, make the mistakes there, because you've got people to bail you out. And I think, you know, that'll make you more comfortable when there's nobody to bail you out. And then I think just once you get out into private practice, do take on the cases that you feel comfortable with starting out, but try to take a couple that kind of push your comfort zone a little bit. You know, start sectioning the teeth a little bit more, and I think the more you do it, the more confident you get, and you can take on the bigger cases. And you know, I think that's the way to go.
You want to know how I learned it?
What's that?
You want to know how I learned it?
How's that?
Well, I opened up my practice, and it was I just turned 30 years old last September 21st. I graduated in '87, so 2017, 30 years old. But I opened up my practice, and there was this dentist named Gary Solwin that had these 4 Sunshine Dental clinics. And they were in poor parts of town, did lots of extractions, lots of dentures, whatever. And they were open 7 to 7. So I sat there and got a job, a part-time job with him. And I wasn't a competitive threat, because I was down in Ahwatukee and he was in Glendale and Central Phoenix. And there was another dentist in there named Nick Gidwani. And I mean, in 4 years of dental school, I think I pulled 54 teeth to graduate. We'd pull that many. I was pulling that many in a week.
Oh, wow.
And if I ever got stuck, which was all the time, Nick Gidwani would just try not to laugh, you know, in front of the patient. And I'd stand there and he'd take it out in like 3 seconds. And so a lot of dentists might be in Beverly Hills and Associate, but there might be somewhere in LA, Denture World, and guys that go there. So I thought it was fun, camaraderie, because you go in there and there'd be 3, 4, 5, 6 doctors at a time. And I when I walked in there, I knew if Nick Gidwani was behind me, I could attempt anything. Yeah. Because he could bail me out. And a lot of people are traveling to the other side of town, finding Denture World, finding a clinic, finding where there's some mentor in there that could do the oral surgery. But yeah, very, very important. So extractions, endo, what's next for you?
Implants.
Implants.
Definitely implants. Right now, we're actually just talking about different courses we're looking at doing. Engel Institute, looking at the Mish Institute. Those are the 2 right now that are on the radar. going to be doing in the next 6 months to get started with implants.
And where's the England Soup, Philadelphia?
They have courses in Detroit and courses in, I think, Raleigh, North Carolina, somewhere in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that's an implant course.
It is, yeah.
And then the Mish is in where Carl Mish. That's in Detroit, or where's that at now? Or is it just in Florida now?
They have Orlando, and I want to say they have a couple in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Are they in Orlando? If I'm going to Orlando on Monday to the Townie meeting, the Mission Institute is the Mission Institute in Orlando, and if so,
according to Google's first thing comes up, it's in Michigan. That's MI, right? I'm gonna say yeah, Michigan's MI. Let me see.
Mission to MISCH.
But you know what? It recommended Orlando, so let's see what's going on.
Because his brother Randy
They have a
Mish.
surgical program session starting February 16th in Orlando. Ends February 17th. Let's see if they have anything else to see.
Yeah. Well, email me that, Ryan, because we're going to be in Orlando for a week. I'm going to run by there. See, I'm such a geek, man. I mean, I'll go to like Kathmandu, Nepal, and people say, well, did you see this temple or that temple or that temple? And I'm like, no. Then what'd you do? And I'm like, well, I met 7 new friends. I went to 7 dental offices, and I just
That's cool though.
They do have an institute in Orlando, yeah.
Well, let's go visit. Let's contact him. I think it's Randy Mish. I think it's Craig's brother. So you're gonna do either the Ingle or the Mish. And where is your mind? How will you pick between those two?
Yeah.
Or is it Dental Town message boards?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
And what are they telling you to do?
Well, so I actually just did a thread on that a couple weeks ago, and or last week, and a lot of them were saying, Ingle is good to just get your hands wet with implants. You place an implant the 3rd day in the course, and they'll help you just do basic courses or basic cases. And they're saying once you've gotten a few under your belt, look to the Mish Institute to really level up from there. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and what I'm thinking about doing. But that could change. So.
And what about you?
I've been talking about Matt. We were just talking about that and kind of going over the different options, and that's kind of what we're leaning to. I think it's fun to take courses with buddies or something. Just makes the trip a little bit more entertaining.
Well, I look back at it and I think, what was the best decision I did out of dental school? Number 1 was demographics, finding Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Number 2 is I joined the AGD, and I was this little 24-year-old piss and vinegar kid, and I was arguing with the AGD guys because they wanted me to take these courses in 16 different subjects, and I'm like, well, I don't want to do implants, and I don't want to do ortho, and I want to take it all in fillings and crowns and root canals. And these old guys put their arm around me and say, Howard, it's cross-training. Anyway, looking back, I was sitting there, I was so livid that I had to take an implant course back in the 80s. And I had it not only, how many would be in that whole category? Like 16 hours or 32 hours or?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So my walnut brain thought, okay, I'm just going to knock this shit out on one deal. So I only looked for what course could knock out the whole damn requirement so I could just go to hell, purgatory, do it, be done, check it off. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in the front row in front of Carl Mish, and it just fell in love. And it was like I thought I lived in North America, and I just discovered South America or Australia, and it was just amazing. And I look back, and I look back at the fellowship in the AGD, the mastership in the AGD, diplomat in the International Congress of Implantology is not any of the courses are the alphabet soup bullshit behind your name, which none of your patients even know. I remember when I got my FAGD. I put it on my car and I put it on my office. I was so proud of it.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything for about 2 months, and some 80-year-old lady walked in and she said, I see you're a fagda. He goes, my brother's gay. And I thought, wow, all it is a fagda and her brother's gay. That's cool. So, but I look back at it, it was the relationships you met. You can't go through one of those programs without meeting a buddy, and you're just a summary of the 5 people you hang around with the most. So if you graduate from dental school and you go hang out with 5 dentists who hate dentistry, then you're going to hate dentistry. You go hang out with, you get married and have a child, and you go hang out with 5 guys who hate being married with a child and think, just whatever you want to be, find 5 people just like that and hang with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a very good idea.
So what's after implants? What?
Yeah, everything. You know, just doing as much C as we can. Sleep apnea is a big one. I want to get into.
Why?
Well, actually, I went to an AGD meeting a couple months ago with Dr. Horowitz out of, I forget what group he's with, but anyway, the idea of being able to save lives is really cool as a dentist. I think you get into it, and you don't think you have that capacity, and then you learn that you can by addressing the airways, which is pretty cool. And then I came back from that course, and I'm not doing anything with it, being in public health, but you start seeing so many patients that are having signs and symptoms of this issue, you know, and they're having GERD, they have high blood pressure, they're overweight, they're grinding their teeth, all these things. You're thinking, man, I wonder if you could use a sleep study. I wonder if this would be beneficial for you and improve your life. So that's something that's exciting.
Well, and then that's what I'm most excited about, is hearing that there's stuff out there that you're excited about.
Yeah.
I mean, when I see 2 30-year-old babies who just got out of dental kindergarten school, what I want to see is excitement. I want to see 4 kids running to the beach.
Yeah.
You know, like when you go to the beach, I mean, some people are, you know, running to the beach, some are walking, some are just camping. They don't even want to put their foot in the water. And whenever you see the young kids excited and think something's cool, their future is going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one's Productive Dentist Academy is something definitely want to check into, want to look at doing.
He's got a course here in Phoenix this fall.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Are you talking about Bruce Beard?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Blue Sky, I think I think I've seen what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it that with Blue Sky Bio?
I'm not sure. I've just seen some advertising for their upcoming event. I remember it being in Arizona, but I'm not sure exactly what that is there.
What I loved about Bruce Beard and what I loved about Carl Misch is you know, Socrates said the best surgeons were trained in war. And, you know, I was afraid to place an implant, you know, and I was all dinky. And then I went in with Carl in Detroit, Michigan back in the day. It was in his office, and it was like 7 3-day weekends.
Oh, nice.
And he would walk in the room, and the anesthesiologist already had him put under and everything. And he'd always be talking to you while he's like flapping retromolar pad to retromolar pad, slowing the lingual to the other side, and you're like, you feel like you're in war, like you're in Vietnam, you know, watching this, and he just all talking to you while he's just doing it, and you see a guy place, you know, 6-8 implants in the lower, 6-8 in the upper in 20 minutes, while half the time, so I get nervous when I'm with someone driving, like a couple of my friends when they drive, the whole time, if they're talking to you, they have to look at you. And I'm like, don't look at me, you know, if you have to look at me to talk, let's just turn on the music.
Yeah.
And to watch Carl place half a dozen implants while I wasn't even looking out the windshield, then when you went back to place your one little in a molar, you were numb to it.
Right.
And Bruce Beard, and another one as Bill Williams, a $10,000.
Yeah, he's out of Georgia, right?
Yeah, out of Georgia. So here's Bruce Beard in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I mean, to call that a town is, I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he does $10,000 to $12,000 a day himself.
Wow.
And there's another guy in Georgia. So when I saw a guy that just expected to do $10,000 a day just by himself, all the other officers like, well, I do 2,200, and I'm trying to do a goal of 2,600 or 2,800. Why don't you set the goal of 10 grand?
Yeah.
Because it's doable.
So what do you think they're doing differently than the person like that you're saying that's doing, you know?
Oh, 100% this case presentation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just people in there that, you know, they walk in there and you got 28 teeth, and they just look at the one that's in pain and say you need a root canal in the crown, and it takes them 5 to 10 years before they can just say, well, you know, if this whole quadrant's going to be numb anyway, why don't we just do it all?
Right.
And then they don't realize that the oral surgeon's next door to him, and his whole career numbs up all 4 quadrants and just does it all. And if you ask any American, would you like to come in 4 times and get numb in 4 quadrants and do a filling in each one, or would you just do them all? And they just, it's kind of like the difference between wealthy people and poverty. Mm-hmm. Like in poverty, I remember when I was in undergrad in Creighton, it was in the poor part of town because it was a 100-year-old university.
Okay.
So any neighborhood 100 years later is the poorest deal. And then in Kansas City Dental School, same thing. It was in the poor part of town. And I heard all those people that I lived with for 4 years saying, well, you won't get into college. There's no way you'll ever afford to college. And so they're just telling them. Then you go to rich families, and grandpa's telling his 5-year-old, so what college do you think you'll go to when you get older? Do you think you want to be a doctor, a scientist? What do you, and you look at these 5-year-old little girls saying, well, I know I want to go to ASU, not U of A. And that's when you know the kid's smart. That's when you know the kid's a genius. And because why would you pay money to go to U of A? All you got to do is drive by it real slow with your windows down. They'll throw a diploma in the back seat. and then and they're sitting there at 5 years old thinking, do they want to be a vet or a scientist or work on dolphins? So when they walk into the case, I mean, it's just totally believed that you're going to fix all your teeth and we're going to do it in one appointment. Mm-hmm. The only question is, do you want to be put to sleep? Do you want me to bring in a sedation person? Because remember, when you look at the market of dentistry, half of America is afraid of the shot.
Sure.
And the other half is afraid of the price.
Right.
So if you could address financing, so Bruce Beard and these guys are masters. Like other people walk in there and say, well, you know, to do this one tooth is a root canal built-in crown is $1,600. Your insurance will pay $1,000. Your portion is $600. Where other people, their health history will get everything they need for the finance companies. So while you're asking them if you've ever had syphilis, gonorrhea, or herpes, they're asking, have you had your same, where do you work? Have you had this job 2 years? Where do you live? Have you lived here more than 2 years? So they're asking, because I'd rather have financial and psychographic data. I mean, I quit asking about STDs probably the first year I was in my office. This man wouldn't come back, and he wanted to see me in the private office, and Jan walked him back there, and then he wanted her to leave, and then he pointed this deal, have you ever had syphilis, gonorrhea, or whatever? And he starts getting all sad, telling me that in World War II he had a 4-day pass to the Philippines, and he actually did get, and I'm like, why are you telling me this? Right. And why are you traumatized? And what does having gonorrhea in World War II have to do with today?
Yeah. Sure.
So I started asking more questions like, what did you like the most about any dentist you've gone to in your life? What did you like the least? What are you expecting to have done? If they say, well, I know this tooth needs pulled, I know I want to start with that. Why did you leave your last dentist? Well, I just want to get my teeth cleaned, and they said I needed this deep cleaning thing. And almost every single time someone says that, they got gum disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they obviously didn't present it right. And you're saying this is Steve Buchanan's?
Yeah, I think so. If it says...
who my classmate Stephanie Carmada tells me that Dr. Steve Buchanan is the most handsome dentist on earth, and the only reason she took all of his endo courses is just because he was so gorgeous.
He's a pretty smooth dude. I went and took his course back in October.
And what'd you think?
He walks the walk and talks the talk.
Oh, yeah. He's just amazing.
Yeah, he's cool. I learned a lot from him.
And if you ever get a beer down him, you wouldn't believe the celebrities that he's done a root canal on.
Oh, yeah?
Did he mention any during his course?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, he's a class act guy. You need to get him drunk. And
noted. I'll get that next time.
Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get the heads up on that, but he has. I mean, he's done some of the most amazing celebrities. So you asked why do they do $10,000 a day?
Yeah.
Because they take presenting the treatment as serious as learning how to do the treatment.
Okay.
And most of your greatest dentists in the world are afraid of their own shadow. They can't talk. They're introverts. After every patient, they go lock themselves in their office. Their staff's like beating on the door. Come out, come out. And Beard and Steve Buchanan and Charles Williams are guys that go out there, hey, how are you doing? How's the wife? How's the kid? How's the dog? And so basically, Matthew, you haven't been to the dentist for 5 years. No big deal. I mean, hell, by 65, almost 10% of Americans have 0 teeth. Another 10% are missing half. By age 75, 20% have 0 teeth, and times 2 missing half. And you're 50, and you got a lot to work with. Here's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do It's like you don't ask your college daughter, well, do you think you'll go to college when you grow up?
Right.
I mean, you might not get any students. No, you're going to frickin' college. And so you're going to go to college. We don't know if grandpa will die and leave you some money or if it's going to be student loans. So this is what we need to do. We need to, and then they present the whole deal in simple terms and in very simple terms. And then they'll say, and congratulations on your credit. I mean, you're doing good. You've had this same job. But anyway, but basically, it's going to cost you. You've been approved. It's like looking at a car. Only 10% of the cars are paid in cash. 90% are financed. They finance them almost. It used to be 36 months when I was little. Then it moved to 48 months. Hell, now it's 60 months. It's 5 years. So what it's going to do? It's going to cost $488 a month, which I'm sure you can do that for 60 months. And my only question for you is, I think you'll be very fine and comfortable. It'll be about a 2-hour appointment, but do you want to be put to sleep? Do you want me to bring in a board-certified anesthesiologist and put you out, or do you want to do it when you're awake? And they're like, I'd like to be put out. And just wait, okay. So it's probably going to be, this is what we're going to do. It's $488 a month for 60 months. We'll put you to sleep. Do you have any questions for me? And people just say, yeah. I mean, because everybody wants their teeth. No one wants to lose all their teeth. Because then you have to tell everybody the rest of your life you're from Arkansas. I'm just kidding, it's Kentucky. No. And so, they want to keep their teeth. I mean, nobody would go to an eye doctor and they say, well, do you want to keep your eye?
That's a great point.
Do you want to keep your hearing? Well, no one wants to lose their hearing, their eye, or their teeth. No one wants their body to start falling apart. And so they present the case. They have confidence. And they don't tell them this enormous price. Like, imagine going into a car lot, 2 doctors, and you just made $165,000 a year. And let's say that your fantasy car, which all 4 of my boys have the same fantasy car, a Ford 150 pickup truck, which is $60,000 with nothing in it and $100,000 loaded. And they said, Matt, we're going to need $100,000. Are you going to give that to me in cash, gold bars? I mean, what would it, in the average selling car in America is $30,000.
Sure.
How comfortable would you two just hand me a check for $30,000 right now?
Not comfortable at all.
Yeah. But that's what dentists do in dentistry. Yeah. And they say, 1 tooth, give me $1,000, and the guys doing all their cases are breaking it up into 60 months.
So what kind of financing, or do you do like care credit, or do you do like an in-house financing?
Well, what I love the most about care credit is care credit will come into your office and show you what all the other offices are doing a month. Okay. Because a lot of dentists say, well, you don't understand. I'm out in the middle of Parsons, Kansas. There ain't no money around here. Yet I was just in Kansas the other day, and this dentist was telling me that's in a small town. I think it was 5,000 people. And it's like, dude, across the street is a 7-Eleven. Let's talk about every car in there. Almost every car was an F-150 pickup truck. I said, so here we're out in the poor country, and I'm looking at 10 cars across the street, and 5 of them are $60,000 to $100,000. Yeah. So what care credit come in is when you sit there and playing the blues. Well, the problem is it's everything but me. And they go, well, actually, in your zip code, there's 14 dentists. And this guy's doing $10,000 a week, and this guy's doing $8,000, and you're doing $300 a month.
Wow!
So you really think that you're in the richest country in the world, and you're in Kansas, and we're a third world country, and there's no money, and runaway inflation? I mean, no. It's always the man in the mirror, and everyone who has an ego and is arrogant blames it on everybody else, and it's the humble man. I said, I wonder why I can't present any big cases. And then they go take a course and learn. They get on Dental Town, they do whatever. Yeah. And they always assume, because they're humble, that someone else knows more than them and they can learn something. Yeah. And it's the arrogant to blame it on everything else, and nothing's their fault.
Sure.
So if you're going to recommend a course for case acceptance,
Bruce Beard.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Bill Williams. And what's Bill Williams' site? Do you know?
I don't know. I know he's in Georgia.
Yeah.
I forget what part.
And there's some other idiosyncrasy things. There's a lot of dentists say, well, I don't like to talk about money. Okay, well now we have some little lady who's not a dentist or anything coming in there presenting the deal. If the dentist doesn't say the amount of money, you don't own it. The patient doesn't own it. The charge is high. When I say, yeah, we could do the whole thing for $466 a month for 60 months, no worries. Yeah. And what is $466 a month times 60 months? That's a $30,000 case. And here's the mind shatterer for you. What percent of Americans do you think in their lifetime will just buy an average new car? Before they die, one time in their life will buy the average new car.
Gosh, I don't know. What would you say, Colin?
I have no idea. I couldn't even put a percent on it.
What would you guess?
30%?
20%?
80%.
No kidding. Wow.
Last year, so I'll tell you why I'm a little nervous about the economy. So in 2008, I think we were selling in the United States, I think it was about 7 million cars a year, and it went up to 8 to 9 to 10. Last year was like 15 million.
Oh, wow.
But what scares me about that is of those 15 million, 5 million were leased.
Yeah.
Well, what happened in the 2008 deal? It wasn't the lending to the dentists and the people with a good job. It was the subprime lending.
Right.
So now, whenever you push a regulation, like the government passed all this regulation, well, that's just game theory. It's like, okay, well, this is what we can't do. How do we redo it? Well, now when you don't qualify for a loan for a car, they're leasing it.
Right.
So when the qualifications don't, I can't get a loan for a house or whatever through the banks because of the regulations, because I don't qualify. So what's all popping up? All this peer-to-peer lending, where they go to high net worth investors and they say, well, you're only making 2.8% in bonds. We'll give you 10%. Well, why would you give me 10%? How are you making your money? It's subprime lending again.
Yeah.
So you look at all these big people burning money on TV with all these Quicken loans and Rocket loans and all these loans, and they have this monstrous high approval rating. Why? Because the banks can't give them the money because of all the regulations. So they're going to millionaires and billionaires and saying, hey, you got $1 billion at 2%. We'll give you 10% because I can loan it out at 14% or 15% to people who don't qualify. So I'm seeing this huge bubble again in subprime lending, but this time subprime lending is leasing cars instead of buying them, and peer-to-peer loans. And of all the corrections I've lived through, no one ever predicts it because it always comes from somewhere you haven't seen. Mm-hmm. And these are the two new areas that no one's seen. How do we? But here's the deal. But here's the eureka moment. And I'll end on this because I know you guys are tired and late and you're wishing you never would have come by my house for a podcast.
I'm good, man.
They'll come by and they'll say, okay, so 4 out of 5 Americans at one time in their life will buy the average car, which is $30,000. And then you go to 90% of dentists. Have you ever once time in your life sold one $30,000 dental case? 9 out of 10 will never do it in their 40-year career from age 25 to 65 because their town ain't got no money. So 80% of the people in your town bought one. I mean, what's a $30,000 car? What would that be? A Toyota Camry or something? Yeah, something like that, yeah. So 4 out of 5 Americans can buy a brand new Toyota Camry once in their lifetime, but you never sold one in your life. And then Care Credit can show you that there's this little boy up the street, and he sells one once a week.
Yeah.
And when you add a $30,000 case once a week, so that's times 50 weeks a year. Oh, that's just 1.4 million. And then they sit there and you see the average dental office doing $750 and taking home $175.
Right.
And then you see one guy in that street having a $1.5 to $4 million. Bruce is doing $4 million a year.
Yeah.
And it's because he knows you want to leave this car lot in a brand new Toyota Camry. I mean, what do you want to go home in, an Uber?
Yeah, right.
You know, do you want me to call you an Uber?
Right.
Do you want the city bus schedule for Eden, Oklahoma?
They're here. They're in the parking lot.
Yeah, and you can make these car payments.
Yeah.
But America can't hand you $30,000. 9 out of 10 people can't hand you $30,000 for an average new car.
Yeah.
Only 10% can. And who are those? Those are the retirees. Their kids are gone. Their house is paid off. They got a savings account. And they figure spend it now instead of giving it to your spoiled children and your rotten grandchildren. And they just write it in cash.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that is my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm sure you, Ryan, everybody's saying, Dad, you're it's supposed to be an hour show. It's an hour and 15 minutes. There's people in the parking lot trying to wait for me to shut up so they can go in and go to work. Congratulations on sharing where you're at in your journey with our homies. Especially since 5% are pre-dent, 25% are in dental school, the rest are 30 and under. And thanks for bringing me 2 baseball bats. Yeah. And that was last time the grandkids were here. Me and Zach had to take one to the dental office and do a front tooth composite, remember that? Because she was pretending to be paddling and paddled out her brother's front tooth.
Maybe we should put some.
So I know one thing. I know this. I'm going to hide these when my grandchildren come over. But thanks so much for coming over.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having us.
Ryan, thanks for working past sundown.